So, a warm welcome to all of those who are attending our Gita Sandesh program. So, today we will begin chapter 5. But before we do that, let's do a quick recap of chapter 4. Chapter 4 was titled Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, or really it is about transcendental knowledge. Krishna begins the chapter by talking about how he has already spoken this knowledge many millions of years ago to Vivaswan. From Vivaswan, it goes to Swayambhuva Manu. From Swayambhuva Manu, it comes to Ikshvaku. And from Ikshvaku onwards, it has come down in the Parampara. Krishna also gives reasons as to why he comes, to protect his devotees, to destroy the demons, and to re-establish dharma. And in that context, Krishna says, since he has created this Varnashrama system, simply by doing our duties and responsibilities according to Varnashrama, we will be able to purify ourselves. And through this purification process, we can achieve moksha. So Krishna is going deeper and deeper into the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita here. So knowledge is an important component of making progress in spiritual life. And we'll come to the theme question. I didn't see the right answer in the theme question that was posted in the WhatsApp group, and I will explain that in a minute here. So knowledge plus being able to apply that knowledge, practice some sacrifices and observe some austerities can really help us imbibe the Bhagavad Gita. And how one receives this knowledge also matters, because even transcendental knowledge is available. You just think about it. How many Bhagavad Gitas would be printed and available in many shops for all of us to read? But what unlocks the secret of the Bhagavad Gita for us is the Parampara system. It is the Acharyas who are able to unlock the secrets of the Bhagavad Gita, because even though the Bhagavad Gita is being spoken by the Lord to Arjuna, his favorite devotee, his very good friend, still, for us to learn how to apply what Krishna is teaching us in the Bhagavad Gita is not a simple process. So this divine knowledge, this spiritual science, as Krishna calls it, this eternal education has to come via the medium of a spiritual master. So if we want to go back to the spiritual world, we need a spiritual master. And it is the spiritual master who's going to guide us on do's and don'ts, and ultimately how we can reach the destination where Krishna resides. But what is the qualification Krishna is looking for us, in us rather, to learn this knowledge? One is we must have a clean heart. We should not be envious. We should have faith. So when one has faith in Krishna, and one understands that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and that anything that Krishna does is transcendental, it is not ordinary, then Krishna says, whoever has understood my appearance, whoever has understood my transcendental activities, they don't have to take birth again, hey Arjuna, because they will reach the spiritual world. There's a wonderful preacher in ISKCON by the name His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. He has this phenomenal talent of being able to summarize key messages with some very, very memorable statements. So one of the statements that he uses to explain this chapter is that the divine descends to help the human beings ascend. This is the definition of an avatar. An avatar means that personality of a Godhead who descends from the spiritual world into the material world. So the literal meaning of avatar means to come down. Who is coming down? Divinity himself is coming down. Why is he coming down? To help humanity arise and go upwards towards the spiritual world. So the divine descends to help the human beings ascend. But history also teaches us that when we forget the Lord, we get entangled with Mayadevi. You see, in that episode where Duryodhana and Arjuna go to meet Krishna, Duryodhana wanted the Narayani Sena, but he did not want Narayana himself. He thought Narayana is of no use to me. Similarly, Ravana seeks to kidnap Sita, but Ravana did not want Lord Ram in his life. So when human beings are trying to achieve success, when they want the Lord's kingdom, but they don't want Lord himself. So Hiranyakashipu wanted God's kingdom, but he did not want God himself. See, things like intelligence, fame, wealth, success, beauty, all of these are considered to be the Shakti potency of the Lord. In other words, demoniac nature means you want the Shakti potency of the Lord, but you do not want the Lord himself. So you are trying to kidnap Sita Devi into your life, but you really do not want the Lord himself. So the Lord is considered Shaktiman. The Lord's potencies, they are all called Shaktis. So if we want Shakti, we should also accept Shaktiman into our life. So if we want material progress, we should also accept the Lord into our life. So essentially, the Lord is telling us in the 4th chapter, he himself comes down millennium after millennium to establish an education system in this world where every soul has an opportunity to come back to him, or rather to go back to him. And that journey begins, Krishna says, when the Jivatma understands that they are spiritual. So Krishna himself is coming to guide us back to him. And it is up to the Jivatma to take advantage of these rare opportunities when the Lord comes and leaves behind instructions for us. So when you hear about Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and especially when we hear it from the lips of a pure devotee, from a self-realized soul, then it has the power to purify you. So essentially, Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita, there is only one God that needs to be worshipped, and that is him. And it is not that you can practice any path and you will get to him very quickly. While the Lord accepts our individual freedom to practice whatever path that we want, but not all paths are the same. Yes, there are many gods, but those gods have limited portfolio. Their responsibilities are narrow. And they derive that authority, that power, and that responsibility from Krishna. So it is Krishna himself who comes as Lord Vishnu and Lord Ram as Narasimhadeva, He comes in these various expansions. And the Lord is saying, you need to understand this hierarchy. That's why Krishna is saying, if you understand who I am, and that my pastimes are transcendental, then you have achieved success. Then Krishna talks about the Varnashrama system and why he has created it. Although it has been exploited in India, specifically, in very unfair means, Krishna never said that those who are in the lower class cannot come back to him. He said anybody who expresses their love and desire to serve him can come back to him, irrespective of which varna or which ashrama they belong to. Krishna is not saying only Brahmanas get to enter the spiritual world. That means in the varna itself there is mobility. So it is not hard-coded that a Shudra cannot become a Brahmana. All he has to do is acquire the qualities of a Brahmana and have the value systems of a Brahmana and have an occupation that dovetails with those qualities. So it is the guna and the karma that determines which varna you are in. That means you can evolve. And then we learned about what is karma, what is vikarma, and what is akarma. Karma is simply following the scriptures for which you get positive credits. Vikarma is violating the scriptures for which you get negative consequences. And akarma is simply doing everything for the pleasure of Krishna, for which there is no positive or negative credit. There is a separate account that is maintained for those who are devotees of the Lord, because those credits are permanent. So karma means good actions will give you good reactions. Vikarma means bad actions leads to bad reactions. Akarma means spiritual actions equals no reaction, no material reaction. Essentially, Krishna is encouraging us to engage in akarma. How do you engage in akarma? And to engage in akarma, Krishna gives many examples of sacrifices, which we did not cover in yesterday's chapter in detail, although we talked specifically about japa and nama, chanting of the names of the Lord, as the highest of all sacrifices. And therefore, the answer to the yesterday's question was actually, through sacrifice, you can know who Krishna is. Through knowledge, it is only theoretical. You cannot understand who Krishna is simply by studying knowledge. You actually have to follow Krishna's instructions. So by chanting, which is the highest form of sacrifice, you can achieve that transcendental knowledge by observing sacrifices. As I said, I did not cover the sacrifices section other than the focus on chanting the holy names of the Lord, because in Kali Yuga, that is the Yuga Dharma. So we need not worry about other methods. But Krishna does talk about Dravya Yajna, Tapo Yajna, different types of yajnas to begin your spiritual journey. So observing sacrifices is a good way to purify yourself and begin to understand who Krishna is. So that really was the essence of the chapter yesterday. Since our focus is on chanting, we concluded the session with how Nama Japa is the topmost sacrifice that really pleases Krishna. We went to the Vishnu Sahasranam. We went into the conversations between Yudhishthira and Bhishma Dev. We went into the conversation between Parvati Devi and Lord Shiva. We looked at the conclusion of Adi Shankaracharya and the Bhaja Govindam. And we also went into the Kali Santarana Upanishad to learn about those 16 words that you recite. That is the only way in Kali Yuga by which to purify yourself. So that's a quick summary of chapter 4. We can look at chapter 5 now. So in chapter 5, it is a shorter chapter. It has only 29 shlokas. And chapter 5 also begins with Arjuna asking a question. So we'll look at the analogy. Krishna uses quite a few analogies in the Bhagavad Gita. In the second chapter, he uses the analogy of the rivers rushing into oceans. He uses the analogy of a tortoise protecting itself with that shell from the onslaught of temptations for the senses. In this chapter, Krishna is going to use the analogy of a little water droplet on a lotus leaf. And what does it mean for us? Krishna also talks about how this karma unfolds through explaining who the three doers are. Krishna says those who have conquered their senses and they've begun to understand that they are Atma, and therefore everybody else is also Atma, then their vision itself changes. They see everything as belonging to the Supreme God. And then comes the peace formula. So here, Arjuna is once again confused because in the 4th chapter, the last 2 shlokas, shlokas 41 and 42, Krishna has glorified Jnana Yoga. Krishna has also glorified renunciation or Tyaga. But in the last shloka of chapter 4, Krishna again encourages Arjuna to stand up and fight. So Arjuna did not understand akarma clearly. He presumed that akarma means no action. Actually, akarma means no reactions. Akarma is inaction and action, in the sense that you do the same activities as everybody else, but because you're doing it for the pleasure of Krishna, there's no reactions for you. But that doesn't mean you are sitting idle. You are quite busy as a devotee. You keep yourself busy with your duties and responsibilities, but you do it for the pleasure of Krishna. So here, Arjuna is asking Krishna, "Oh Krishna, first of all, you ask me to renounce work, which is Tyaga. And then again, you recommend work with devotion, which is like Bhakti Yoga. Now, will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial?" Now, Krishna will say, Tyaga is good. Working with devotion to please Krishna is also good. But working with devotion to please Krishna is better than simply renouncing your duties and responsibilities. So, essentially, Krishna is going to explain how akarma works in this chapter. Akarma means devotional service, doing things for the pleasure of Krishna so that you do not accumulate papa or punya. Hence, the Lord is saying the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation, but of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work. Essentially, bhakti or tyaga, which is better? Krishna said both will work it'll help you come to the point of liberation. But Krishna is expressing his opinion on what is better of the two, which is working with devotion. So you can achieve perfection in life simply by performing your duties and responsibilities in such a way that you get attached to Krishna. And here Krishna uses some analogies. We'll look at that. So here Krishna is saying, Sannyasa mahabaho dukkhamaptum ayogataha yoga yukto munir brahma nachirena dhigachati. Merely renouncing all activities, yet not engaging in the devotional service of the Lord, cannot make one happy. So Krishna has to explain why he says working with devotion is better than renunciation. When you renounce things, there may be some misgivings about whether you did the right thing or not. Whereas, as we said, that Krishna consciousness means you don't have to subtract anything, you just have to add Krishna into your life. Everything else remains more or less the same. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is not advising us to become sannyasis. He is asking us to develop the mood and quality of a sannyasi while living in whichever varna and ashrama that we are part of. Hence, Krishna is saying here, simply giving up everything is not going to make you happy. But a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay. Without delay. So why is Krishna advising us to do Bhakti Yoga? Because Bhakti Yoga is like a bullet train to Krishna. Whereas Jnana Yoga and Dhyana Yoga will take a long time for you to reach Krishna. Because it's a much more rigorous process. It's a process where you have to depend on yourself to make progress. In Bhakti Yoga, Krishna himself is helping his devotees. That's why Arjuna selected Krishna. He did not want Krishna's Sena. He wanted Krishna on his side. As long as Krishna was on his side, he was not worried. He knew that Krishna will guide them to victory. So that is the confidence and faith that a devotee has. We don't worry about giving up anything. We know that when we worship Krishna, Krishna has his way of protecting us. Hence, there was one term, right? Rakhe Krishna Mare Krishna Rakhe Ke. If Krishna wants to protect his devotee, nobody can touch them. If Krishna wants to destroy the demons, nobody can protect them. So hence Krishna is saying, if you're intelligent, if you're thoughtful, then certainly you will practice Bhakti Yoga. Because I am telling you, Arjuna, by practicing Bhakti Yoga, you will come back to me without delay. So Bhakti Yoga does not mean giving up anything. Bhakti Yoga simply means adding Krishna into your life. So Brahmanyadhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti yaha lipyatena sapapena padmapatram ivambhasa. One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. So Krishna is saying we have to train ourselves to perform our duties and responsibilities without attachment to results. The results, we leave it in Krishna's hand, which means Arjuna should fight this battle without worrying about, is he going to kill or is he going to get killed? The results are in the hands of the Lord. His duty is to perform his responsibilities with faith and utter dependence on Krishna. So this particular shloka is actually defining Nishkama Karma Yoga. But if you add Krishna into the mix, then it becomes Bhakti Yoga. In Nishkama Karma Yoga, you are not attached to the results, because you know the danger of being attached to the results. If you get attached to the results, then your ego surfaces up. It then becomes I, me, and mine. Rather, a Nishkama Karma Yogi simply surrenders everything to Krishna, and therefore he avoids sinful reactions, just as a lotus leaf Krishna is describing is untouched by water. No matter how much water is residing on top of that lotus leaf, the lotus leaf is detached from the water. The water can just glide off the lotus leaf. The lotus leaf has no relationship with the water. There was a very great Muni called Shaubari Muni. He was considered a Maharishi of the Rig Veda. And in those days, in different yugas, rishis practiced a tremendous amount of austerities. And the Shaubari Muni was no different. They would do a lot of tapasya. You have tapasya being done by Hiranyaksh and Hiranyakashipu, Ravana. And you understood the consequences all of them suffered. Because they only wanted material success, they didn't care for anything else. They didn't want the Lord in their life. But at the same time, you do have examples of rishis who were like, maybe you could say, devotees of the Lord. But at the same time, they were not necessarily practicing Bhakti Yoga. They were practicing austerities to develop self-control. So it is said that he undertook a tapas where he went into the river Yamuna and stayed underwater for many years. So it is said he did this tapas for 1,000 years without even taking a breath. That means for 1,000 years he held his breath. Somehow or the other, something happened. I will not go detailed into the pastime, but he happened to curse Garudadev. And so Garuda could no longer come and eat the fish in the Yamuna river. And so the fish felt quite safe and happy because Shaubari Muni had cursed Garuda, that if he ever flies over the river Yamuna, he would have to give up his life. So as Shaubari Rishi was meditating under the water, one day he happened to open his eyes and he saw two fish mating. And that broke his tapas. See, that's why Krishna is advising us to depend and do Bhakti Yoga, because Jnana Yoga and all this intense tapas, if you lose focus, it's gone. You have to start all over again. Therefore, doing all of this meditation, fire sacrifices, if it's not done properly, then you've simply wasted time. So anyway, Shaubari Rishi's tapas was broken. Why was he doing the tapas? For the purposes of self-realization and God realization. But see, he opened his eyes momentarily and he got distracted by the fish mating, and he thought, wouldn't it be nice even if I got married and enjoyed myself? This is a great Rishi, a great exponent of the Rig Veda, who succumbed to momentary temptation of enjoyment. Therefore, he steps out of the water. Imagine if you are underwater for hundreds of years. Here it is 1,000 years. Your whole skin, everything will be shriveled up. You may not be smelling very nice. But he decided, let me step out. I will go to the king. The king's name was Mandata. Ask for his daughter in marriage. Because the rishi succumbed to his senses. Of course, the king was very nervous looking at a great rishi. You cannot say no to a rishi because they can curse you in an instant. And the king very politely said, see, in our culture, the girls are allowed to select their own husband. If any, and this Mandata had 50 daughters. Yeah, any one of my girls, if they want to marry you, I'd be more than happy. Simply he left it like that, saying, well, actually in Kshatriya culture and in Vedic culture, a girl is allowed to choose to get married to a man of her choice. However, it is not done through association. It is done through hearing about that person, what good character they have, what good qualities they have. Based on that, that girl can decide, this is the person I want to marry. And then that is the way in which the marriage was arranged in those days. But the king was thinking, definitely none of my daughters will want to marry this old man. They are all young. So he says, but I leave it to my daughters. Rishi internally understood what was the problem. He didn't look handsome. The next day he tells the king, don't worry, I'll come back tomorrow. The next day, because he's a great Rishi, he's done great tapas, he would have achieved some mystic powers. So he transformed himself into a beautiful, handsome young man. Now all 50 daughters fought with each other saying, no, 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 I want this young, handsome man as my husband. And therefore King Mandata gave all of his 50 daughters in marriage to Shaubari Rishi, because all of them wanted this Rishi as their husband. Of course, he had transformed himself into a young man. So here goes Shaubari Rishi, entering Grihastha ashram, happily married with 50 wives, produced many, many children through them, even grandchildren. And one day he thought, what happened to all the tapas that I did? He had Vishwakarma to come and build luxurious mansions for his wives. So one minute he was practicing austerity, next minute he got tempted and entered Grihastha ashram. And his desires just kept increasing and increasing and increasing. When he got really old, he thought, what a horrible thing that I have done. I was doing such nice tapas. Had I continued my tapas, I would have achieved the goal of my life, which is self-realization. And he thought, look at how easily I have lost all the power of the austerity that I had observed. So he repents that he gave up his austerity just to enjoy material life, just to enjoy Grihastha ashram. So he leaves all of his 50 wives behind. Of course, by now, they all have grandchildren. He takes sannyas and goes back to practicing austerity. So hence Krishna is saying, it is better you follow the path of wherever you are. You just surrender the results of all of your activities to me, then no sin will touch you. And because no sin touches you, you will come back to me very quickly. So in this context, Krishna is going to talk about the three doers. And we're going to understand what he means by this. So Krishna says, Sarva karmani manasa sannyasyaaste sukham vashi Navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvanna karayan. When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates. The city of 9 gates is this body with the 9 openings, your 2 eyes, your ears, your nostrils, your mouth, and then your evacuating organs, neither working nor causing work to be done. So anybody who is renouncing everything for the pleasure of Krishna, which means offering the results of all of their activities to Krishna, Krishna says such a person becomes detached from results. So we're going to go back to the 3rd chapter, and we're also going to go back to the 2nd chapter and pick up a couple of shlokas that we did not cover, so that this principle becomes clear. So essentially, Krishna is saying, simply by being detached from the results of the work that we do, we can learn to control our senses. Indriyani paranyahu indriyebhyah param manah manasastu para buddhihi yo buddhev paratastu saha. So the working senses are superior to dull matter. So you could say a BMW is dull matter. So if we were to offer you a choice and say, do you want a BMW or would you prefer to have 2 of your eyes? All of us will select 2 of our eyes because we know the value of life as opposed to the value of matter. So our senses are higher than matter. But what is higher than our senses? The mind is higher than the senses, Krishna is saying. Actually, Krishna says the mind could be considered the 6th sense. What is higher than the senses? It is intelligence. So intelligence is still higher than the mind. And what is higher than intelligence? The soul itself. The soul that is residing with this temporary physical body is even higher than the intelligence. So there's a hierarchy here. The Atma, intelligence, mind, senses. And then dull matter. So this Krishna is talking about in the 3rd chapter. So Krishna is telling us about the hierarchy that the soul is at the highest point. Coming back to the 2nd chapter, 62 and 63rd shloka, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsaha Sankasteshu Pachayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha Kamat Krodho Bhijayate. By contemplating sensory objects, man develops an attachment to them. From that attachment springs lust, and from lust comes anger. So imagine a little boy seeing a brand new shiny bicycle in the shop window. And what does he do? He begins to ask his father, I want that bike, I want that bike. Please buy me that bike, please buy me that bike. What has happened? The senses have become attracted to that bike, and now the boy cannot stop thinking about the bike until he gets it. So the more he thinks about it, the more he wants it. And the father says, no. When the father says no, the son gets angry. And when the son gets angry, he may throw a temper tantrum and tell his family, I am not going to eat. So when you have a burning desire, you are ready to compromise and give up on anything so you can fulfill that desire. Here, a young child may say, fine, I'll not eat if you don't buy me the bike. So similarly, adults also get tempted by sense objects. So there are objects that are attractive to your eyes, objects that are attractive to your ears, to your nose, to your sense of taste, etc. And when those desires are not satisfied, Krishna says anger develops. So, krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammohat smriti vibhramaha, smriti bhramshat buddhinashaha, buddhinashat pranashyati. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So Krishna is helping us understand how the cycle operates. It all begins with lust, which he has already told us in the 3rd chapter is our greatest enemy. And when lust is not fulfilled, it results in anger. When you become very angry and disappointed that you're not getting what you want in spite of trying and trying and trying and trying again and again, then you become deluded. Then this delusion plays tricks with your mind and your memory. And when your mind is bewildered, that's when you lose sense of discrimination between right and wrong. Hence, Krishna says you will ultimately lose your intelligence. And when you've lost your intelligence, then everything will go wrong in your life. You will just fall into the cesspool of chasing things because you are not able to prioritize. So, what are the 3 doers that are engaged in this cycle that has just been described? It all begins with the Jivatma desiring to have something. So when we are given free will, Krishna allows us to desire for anything. What does Krishna actually want you to desire? He wants you to use that free will to desire Krishna himself. But what do the Jivatmas do? We use that free will to desire everything but Krishna. Ravana wanted everything but Rama. Hiranyakashipu wanted everything but Narayana. Duryodhana wanted everything but Krishna. So Krishna expects us to use our free will to desire him. Because Krishna is the topmost that we can achieve. So why settle for less? Why settle for stupid things like silly little things like, I want so many degrees, I want so much money in my bank account, I want to be successful, I want to be well known, I want to be famous. Why not use that free will to desire Krishna himself to stop the cycle of suffering? But anyway, that's not what happens. What does the Jivatma do? The Jivatma uses his free will to desire everything but Krishna. And when Paramatma knows that this is your desire, he will sanction it based on whether you have the appropriate number of credits in your account. If Paramatma sanctions your desire, then Paramatma will instruct Prakriti, which is his Shakti potency, to fulfill or to create the environment such that the Jivatma is actually able to fulfill that desire. So, hence there are 3 doers, but everything begins with the desire of a Jivatma. If Paramatma sanctions that desire, Prakriti will help fulfill that desire for that particular Jivatma. But who is the culprit here? The Jiva. So whenever anybody is going to ask any questions about, but why do we suffer? You suffer because you have desired for things that have nothing to do with Krishna. If you don't desire Krishna, then you have to experience Krishna's Maya potency, Maya Shakti, which is meant to inflict suffering on you. Essentially, we suffer because we misuse our free will. The cause of all suffering is the Jivatma misusing their free will. If the Jivatma desires everything spiritual, then suffering can be completely changed or wiped out by Krishna. Because as we said, if the Jivatma is desiring Krishna himself, then Krishna takes charge of the Jivatma's life. So how does the sanctioning process work? Let us say two people go into a bank. I have, say, 1 lakh rupees in the bank. Somebody else is also standing behind me. I write a slip and hand it over to the bank manager or the teller and say, this is how much I want to withdraw. That I want to withdraw 25,000 because I have deposited 1 lakh. So the person standing behind me approaches the branch manager and says, I also want 25,000. Please sanction it. And the bank manager says, well, you cannot withdraw 25,000 because your bank balance is only 5,000. And if that person says, but then how can you give that person 25,000? You're refusing to give me 25,000. So the bank manager will say, well, that person has a higher balance in his account than 25K. So Krishna has nothing to do with your desire. If you have 5,000 in your bank account, Krishna will allow you to withdraw maximum 5,000. That's how the sanctioning process works. If you don't have the credits, Krishna is not going to sanction that desire. It's exactly like how you would walk into the bank and withdraw money. You can only withdraw money as much as what you have deposited. If you have the money, then Prakriti will help you fulfill that desire based on Paramatma having sanctioned it. So the bank manager will only allow you to withdraw as long as the balance is sufficient enough for you to withdraw that amount. So for a Jivatma, you can only withdraw what you have deposited. If you have not deposited sufficient punya, you cannot withdraw and ask the Lord to give you everything fancy that you desire in life. So to get the good things in life, you should have already put that many pious credits into your account. So the role that the Lord is playing here is, he is only sanctioning based on your own karmic balance. That means he still has nothing to do with your desire. Your desire is yours alone. So two things are functioning here. One is your desire, one is your karmic account. Based on the combination of these two, we are either going to suffer or we are going to enjoy ourselves. But ultimately, it is the Jivatma that has to learn to change their desire. If we change our desire, then everything else will also change. So now Krishna is going to talk about those who have changed their desire. As a matter of fact, they don't have any other desires other than to do their duties and responsibilities, and they have no expectations in return that Krishna is going to sanction, not sanction. See, the sanctioning thought process doesn't come into a person who has no desire other than to simply do their duties and responsibilities with detachment. So Krishna is glorifying such a person. He says, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Shuni Chaiva Swapakecha Pandita Samadarshinaha. Krishna is calling such people the humble sages. By virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmanan, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater, or a chandala, an outcast. Krishna is saying those who have achieved this spiritual stature of being self-realized, they don't look at anybody's outer body anymore. What are they seeing? They are only saying two things. There is a Jivatma and Paramatma inside every single body. Therefore, they don't discriminate between a dog and an elephant, or a Brahmana or a Shudra or a lower caste. Because for them, Narayana is present in everybody, and the Jivatma is also there along with Narayana inside each body. Hence, such a person is known to see everything with equal vision. So, no discrimination based on external body. So, how can you and I also achieve this peace formula? So, now we come to the single word summary for today's chapter, which is peace. In the first chapter, it was all about Arjuna lamenting. In the second chapter, Krishna establishes Arjuna's identity as being the spirit soul. In the third chapter, Krishna is saying, do your duty, but do it to please me. That is work for me. In the fourth chapter, Krishna is saying, in order to do that duty, you need some knowledge. And that basic knowledge begins with knowing who you are, knowing who I am, and knowing what your purpose in life is. And if you do your duties and responsibilities with this knowledge, then you will achieve peace of mind. So when you achieve this peace of mind, this is also called moksha. In the sense, you have nothing else in your life you desire. You are just waiting to see Krishna. So this is the last shloka where Krishna talks about the peace formula. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarva loka maheshwaram suhridam sarva bhutanam jnatva mam shantim ricchate. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. Krishna is saying he is the supreme enjoyer of everyone's sacrifice and austerity. Hence he is called Yajna Purusha. He is also saying that he is the supreme lord and all of the planets and the devatas are under his control. That is Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. The entire universe is under the control of Krishna. Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam. Krishna also says, I am the best friend and well-wisher for every single Jivatma, provided they turn to me and ask my help. If they turn to me and ask for my help and my personal presence in their life, then this is the peace formula. You can achieve liberation even when you are in this body and in this material world. Normally, we understand liberation or moksha to be entering the spiritual world, but a true devotee of the Lord experiences bliss even in this life, simply because they have understood who Krishna is, they have invited Krishna into their life, and they're doing their best to serve and please Krishna. Simply by serving and pleasing Krishna, they achieve this bliss. So the process of understanding this knowledge is achieving peace of mind. So in this way, Krishna is concluding by saying that if a Jivatma wants to overcome this duality of life, they have to understand that Krishna is Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam. Everything that we do if we do it for the pleasure of Krishna and we understand that it's Krishna who's accepting our austerities and sacrifices, that it is Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, that Krishna is the boss of all the planets and the demigods. And Krishna ultimately wants the best for us. He's our well-wisher, he's ready to help us. And if we've understood these three facets of Krishna, then Krishna says, this is the peace of me. So, he's the real enjoyer. In the Vrajabhumi Leela, you see that all the Gopa boys only want to please Krishna. All the gopis also only want to please Krishna. If Krishna is happy, they are happy. If Krishna is suffering, they are also suffering. So the whole mood of Vrindavan is that Krishna is at the center of everyone's life. For them, Krishna is their life. Without Krishna, they don't feel alive. Their joy and bliss comes from serving Krishna. This is why the Vrajabhumi Leelas are so sweet, because of the exchange that is happening between Bhagavan and the Bhakta. The Bhakta is experiencing bliss serving Bhagavan. The Bhagavan is experiencing bliss in the midst of the Bhaktas. And in this way, the circle is completed. Therefore, Krishna is the real enjoyer. So all of the Vrajabhumi pastimes teaches us that Krishna should be the center of our life. And if we make Krishna the object of our love, then your life itself becomes sublime. Of course, the deeper understanding is that Krishna is controlling everything through his Purusha incarnations called the three Vishnus. And Krishna is the friend for all the Jivatmas because we belong to him. And because we belong to Krishna, Krishna is anxious to be in your life. But if the Jivatma has rejected Krishna, then Krishna is just patiently waiting when you will change your mind and turn towards him. So as long as we are turned our back to Krishna, then we are engaged with Krishna's Shakti potency called Maya Devi. When we turn towards Krishna, then Maya Devi does not have any role to play in our life because Krishna has taken over our life. Therefore, Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam. You just have to turn towards Krishna and your life will completely be transformed. So this is the deeper understanding of this last shloka of the 5th chapter. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have on this particular chapter.